Welcome to the Virtual Antics podcast, where we help entrepreneurs streamline their business to six figures and beyond. These short, sweet, and info-packed episodes will inspire, educate, and leave you feeling motivated to take one more step forward in your business. So put down your never-ending to-do list, because in this podcast, we are interviewing the best of the best in the entrepreneurial world as they spill their secrets to success. This podcast is sponsored by Nodora, the all-in-one software for entrepreneurs to grow their business with unlimited landing pages, automations, emails and text campaigns, and so much more. I'm your host, Natalie Guzman. Now let's get into it. Welcome back to Virtual Antics podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Guzman, and today I have the amazing Jonathan Green for this episode. He is an expert at using artificial intelligence tools to accelerate your online business. He is the best-selling author, ChatGPT Profits, has a mailing list of over 100,000 subscribers, and hosts a podcast with over 250 episodes. He has been running an online business full-time since February of 2010 and is an expert in using ChatGPT, Midjourney, Claude, and Leonardo to grow your online business. Welcome, Jonathan. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you, especially to talk about one of my favorite things of all times, which is AI and ChatGPT. So tell us a little bit how you got into this and how it's kind of, grown your business, help you grow other people's as well.
Sure. I've been using a lot of tools for a long time. Everyone, you get used to a couple tools and then you're hesitant to try something new because every time you change your tech stack, it's really a lot harder than you think it's going to be. So every time you change something, you have to think about it a lot to make sure that nothing will break, and something always does. So I've always been resistant to change. I have people like, why do you use WordPress for your websites? Well, it's because I've been using it for 13 years. I'm not going to switch unless there's a really dramatic, big reason. Same reason people very rarely change their website hosts or their email providers. So I have been using a few AI tools for the past few years that were okay, but never ready for prime time. People make always this big promise, like, oh, click one button or write an email. And it's like, well, it's never good enough. And then with ChatGPT 3.5, everything changed. Suddenly, content came out that was workable, that was usable, that was more than just a rough draft, that was actually something that was convincing, even if it was just a small piece here and a small piece there. And that changed everything for me. And I began to watch a lot of those training YouTube videos, and I realized that there really were no experts, because every time I'd watch one of those trainings, I go, oh, I bet I can do this better. And I realized that the way I think about AI and the way I think about building things is the way ChatGPT and most AIs think. So I'm just very fortunate because there's a lot of tools that are so counterintuitive for me and I find really, really hard to use. AI just happens to be one that everything I think it will do, it does. So I find it really natural. And sometimes it's hard for me to teach people because it's so easy for me. And so I'm always trying to bridge that gap of why is this easy for me, which is the critical step when you're teaching.
Yeah, so true. And that's really interesting because I feel like, as soon as I kind of dived into ChatGPT and AI, I was like, the possibilities were endless, right? So you not only have ChatGPT, you have all these other programs. I've even used it for like reel editing and audio editing and video editing. There's just so many different tools now that include AI, which is really cool. So what are your, favorite things that you have done on ChatGPT, or any tips or advice you can give our listeners?
Yeah, the most important thing is to look at areas in your workflow that are very repetitive. So anything you do that's repetitive, that you do every single week, whether it's answering emails or doing research or moving things between spreadsheets, whatever it is, that's the first thing you want to find a way to move that process out, either through automation or through AI, because that's where you'll get the fastest win. So there are certain things that we have to do every single week. Like every time I have to make show notes for an episode, the old process for me processing a podcast episode on my show is that I would have to re-listen to the episode, cut out all of the mistakes, remove the background noise, process the audio, run it through an enhancer, get everything ready. Then I would go and make my show notes. Then I would have to make a transcript and clean up the transcript. It was really an arduous process. Before I could afford to hire anyone, it would take me like 8 hours per episode. And over time, it got less and less, but now I can send the recording to ChatGPT and say, make me show notes. And it makes the show notes in 30 seconds. I don't have to re-listen to the episode. I don't have to do any of that. So that's something that's repetitive for me. So anything that where I'm constantly doing it over and over again, or when I make a lesson and I have a video, I can just send the video in and say, hey, make a description to go below this video, or clean up the transcript, or make a lesson worksheet to go with this lesson. And it gives a massive amount of value to my customer or my listener, but it doesn't take me as much time. And the other thing I look at is which of your employees, when you pay them, you're the most annoyed? That's the second area where it's the biggest opportunity to go. That's the person you want to replace because you're annoyed by paying them. So I've gone down from 20 employees. I just have two people that work for me now because most of them I've replaced. And more of what we do, we can really do more efficiently because there's always a drop in quality when you have someone working for your team. There's always something lost in the communication. But now, instead of managing my employees, I'm just managing a bunch of AI tasks. So I can do a lot more things so much faster. There's so much more efficiency. And even when I think about the time it would take me to teach someone the process, I could just do it with an AI faster. So it really has saved me a massive amount of time and overhead. That's the other thing I look at is where can I do save time and where can I save money? And I'm always looking to remove a lot of the costs in my business because a lot of software prices have really dropped this year because of the way OpenAI is pricing. It's forced everyone else to kind of stop these really unbelievable pricing practices. So it's made things a lot more affordable for normal people.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I love that because so I am an automation junkie. So the same way you dived into ChatGPT and AI, I did that with automations. And so I actually saved 32 hours a week. I've replaced a whole staff member just to in automation. So it's amazing if you combine the automation aspect with the AI, how much time you can save. That's amazing. Now you've written a couple different books on AI. Is that correct?
I have one big book on AI, ChatGPT Robots. I've written a lot of other books on business and automation and growing your business, but my flagship book just about AI is the one ChatGPT book.
Awesome. And what can people learn from reading that book?
It's really the instruction manual that's kind of missing. The problem with AI is that the same reason we love it, oh, it can do everything. Well, it's like, well, yeah, but what's relevant to me? So what we really wish it came with was an instruction manual, and you can flip to the page and go, I want to do this, I don't want to do that. How do I do A? I don't care about doing B. So it covers just a wide range to give you a real sense of what it can do, what is possible. And it's mostly designed to give you a bunch of copy and paste prompts so that you don't have to figure out. The problem is most people approach AI like programming. They go, oh, I have to learn this new language. And that's really frustrating for a lot of people. My instruction manual in my book is really designed to bypass that. So you get to see my thinking when I'm designing a prompt, then what the prompt is, and then what the expected response is. So you can see the entire process. And I don't use any theoretical prompts. It's all things from 6 months of me working with the tool. So every single prompt in the book, I say, here's when I used it. Here's what I did. I made money from this prompt, and here's what it does. So it's really things like that. I'm always chasing efficiency. I'm always trying to see if someone else does something in 10 prompts, I'm like, can I do it in 3? If someone does it in 3, I want to do it in 1. In fact, I was working on a project for a client recently to take an entire process that takes him like hours. And I was like, I'm sorry, I only got it down to 2 prompts. I was trying to get it down to 1, but I couldn't. So it's 2 steps. So now it takes 10 minutes instead of 1, but it also still saves him 5 hours and 50 minutes. But that's really always my approach, is to start getting a feeling for how the tool works, how it thinks, and as much as possible to switch it into a mode where it removes the pressure from the user to come up with the perfect question. Because it's like, if I phrase the question wrong, I'll get the wrong answer. And that's very frustrating for people. So it's really designed to help people get past that initial hurdle so they can get to that just really great experience.
Yeah, that's really smart. So you mentioned in your bio that you have worked in many different AI platforms. So what are some others and what are their uses, or how do you use them compared to ChatGPT?
Sure. I really love Perplexity AI. I don't talk about it as much in my bio, but Perplexity is the best research tool out there. The problem with ChatGPT is that it's out of date. It was 2 years out of date. Now it's about 7 or 8 months out of date because they updated it, but it still would give you data. Like if you ask for travel advice, it might send you somewhere that's now in the middle of a war because the war broke out in that time. So whenever I'm working on a webinar or a presentation or writing an article for LinkedIn, you don't want something that's 6 months old or a year old. I want recent data because most data about ChatGPT from a year ago, like that's not very good for an article, right? Things are changing so fast. I need from this week. Perplexity is an amazing research tool that not only will it let you choose your data sources, you can say only use YouTube or only use trusted articles or only use scholarly articles. And then it will give you, it cites every resource and it gives it to you as a list of the resources where it pulled its data and in a narrative structure with it footnoted and it's such a nice way of getting the data that allows me to really quickly do research better than any other tool. So when I look at anything where I'm like, oh, how do I find proof for this? How do I find proof for that? Because I have a program all about fractional CIOs. And I was like, well, it's very new term. The term wasn't even coined until around August. That's the first time anyone said it or wrote it anywhere. So there's only about 15 articles in existence on it. So finding a new article is really hard. Even on Google, I can't find anything current. It always goes, oh, did you mean CIO? And it's like, no, CAIO. So it's such a new term that I read that, whereas Perplexity goes, oh, here's every article that's ever mentioned it. Here's the reference. Here's who wrote it. Here's a new article on Bloomberg that's really useful to me to add to my presentation. So it gives me exactly what I need. I really love Perplexity. Another tool that I use a lot is Midjourney. That's my favorite image generator. The beauty of Midjourney is that it has a really short learning curve. It's not very complicated. The one annoying thing is that it's only run through a chat program. So you have to learn how to use Discord, which a lot of people hate. They're in the middle of finally switching to just through their own website, which is what it should have always been. A silly tech decision. You always know that it's all tech people talking to tech people because they're like, oh, we use this tool all the time. So of course the whole world will know how to use it. So switching to their own website's good. The reason I like it is it has a lower learning curve. It gives you really good results. You can get great images. It does take a little bit of playing around, but again, you can master the tool in 1 or 2 hours of just playing around, just watching YouTube videos or just trying. It's not as hard as you think. It's always that initial fear of, oh, what if I look dumb? But as soon as you let go of that, you can get great images. I like Leonardo, but the problem is it's so powerful that it's really overwhelming. There's so many switches and levers that every time you design an image, it asks like 100 questions. So for a beginner, it's very overwhelming. So I do use that tool as a backup, but I like Midjourney because it's a lot less complexity. So you don't have as much control, but you're not as likely to make a mistake. It's the difference between driving a car and turning on an airplane. Like, yeah, flying an airplane is cool, but there's a lot more switches. I don't know what they all do. So I have those two tools for those reasons. I'm actually a big fan now of Bing Image Generator, which is free. I use it for most of my logos right now because it just comes out really well. So I'm also liking that tool. There are always 50 new tools or 100 new tools, but I tend to stick to 10 or less because the time you spend learning a new tool is often not worth the effort or the increased productivity you get between the incremental difference between two AI tools. So I use a couple of image generators because I want one that can do text inside of the image. So that's what I'm using, Bing Image Generator. I use that or Ideogram because they let you have text in the image. Otherwise, 99% of the time I'm using Midjourney for image generation and ChatGPT for text work.
Oh, wow. Awesome. That just gave us so much because it kind of showed us, what programs we need to go for what. So awesome. Thank you so much. What are some things that you've replaced in your business? So I know you talked about, you did articles for LinkedIn, you've used, Perplexity for that. What are other things that you've done that you've been able to replace with AI?
Sure. Most of my email writing is with AI. So when I'm writing an email, I tend to at least write the first draft. Same thing when writing a post for LinkedIn. I'll usually either write the rough draft or the AI writes the rough draft. So one is, and then I'll write the final draft one way or the other way, just depending on how much of the idea I have. I edited my entire book with ChatGPT. I just ran the whole book through it. So I do that. I do a lot of my research that way. Almost everything with my podcast, from show notes to descriptions, all of that stuff is done with AI. All my editing of videos, I use different AI tools for that. So when I do a video podcast, I have a tool that just automatically shows whoever's speaking.
Yeah.
And that first I had to pay someone to do it. Then they had a paid software. And now it's just a free feature with my recorder. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Creating the social media clips is now done with AI. It's not perfect. You always have to go in and check on kind of tweak them with every different tool out there, but those are going to get better and better. So those are all things that I do with AI. A lot of content creation, social media, everything comes from AI tools, responding to people on social media and automation. If someone leaves a post on one of my YouTube videos, it gets sent to an automation that ChatGPT writes a reply and just posts it. So it always responds nicely, even though sometimes I would respond negatively when you get those mean comments. And so it's really a great filter. I never have to deal with that. And it allows people to get engaged. So those are some of the things.
What would you use right now because this might change as, the technology gets better and better, but right now, what would you use for creating reels for AI?
I use a tool called Video. There's a bunch of different options that are really good that people are talking about. The reason I like Video is that it has a built-in social media scheduler. So one of the things that's really frustrating for me is that every social media site wants the video in like different dimensions, and they can't all just decide, oh, we want a square, we want it to be wide, we want it to be tall. That's really frustrating. So with every single tool, they handle it different ways. So with video, I still have to make each clip, I have to make it 3 different ways. I have to say, this is the clip I want. Now make it a square, now make it a rect. And that's annoying. But when I want to post it to a social network, it has a scheduler and it will automatically write the post with an AI tool built in. Other tools make better videos, but they have worse schedules, or they're just significantly more expensive and they don't seem to be that different. Every single tool kind of makes the same level of quality for the videos. There's not really a difference. They all give you a bunch that they think are good, and you have to go through and probably out of 20, they make 3 are worth using. So they're not amazing yet, which will just happen over time as people keep using them. I think that those tools will stop being tools and will become features. Yeah. So already I record my podcast with Riverside, and Riverside already has the face flipping thing, which is an amazing AI feature. They've added a transcription tool, and now they've added a social media clip maker. If it had a scheduler, then it would kind of remove the need for a lot of my other tools. So over time, I think that tools are going to keep merging. And what happens is it's something that used to be hard, right? It used to be so hard to make your social media clips. Now it's a lot easier. It used to be a service, would cost hundreds or thousands of dollars a month to do it. Then you hire a person to do it. Then you can do it with a tool, but it's still manual. Like you have to drag the sliders to grab the clips. And now it's like, well, the AI does it. And then it's like, we just want a scheduler. So it eventually, and then it becomes a specialist tool, and then it just becomes a feature on every other tool. So I think that that's something that's moving towards just being a feature, and a lot of tools will have it, because I'm seeing more and more, it just seems to pop up everywhere. So I guess it's not that hard to do because there are so many tools that do it.
Yeah, I've been noticing that, one of the reasons I asked that question was because I've been trying to find one that works for me. But I noticed it's okay when it comes to long form, but if you already have someone that recorded a video as if they were making a reel, it's not able just to cut out the dead space and piece it together that way. I can't wait until it does that, but it always gives me a ton of issues. So I've been trying all different sorts of AI technology just to make that easier.
For that, I would use Gling. So Gling is this tool that is specifically for editing when you make mistakes.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, let's say you do 3 takes of a reel, it will merge the 3 takes into one. You still have to manually go through it and kind of watch it once, but it's so much faster, or remove the silences. It's really good for that. It's not that expensive. That's my favorite tool for that. If you record multiple takes, or if you have to merge things together, I always use that tool for that situation.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, because I feel like it's something that could be just so easily fixed with AI. And I spent way too long trying to edit a reel the other day. So, but I love AI editing, some of these reel creators, because for my podcast, it's really easy to do. But yeah, for that situation, I was trying to do it for a client. So that's awesome. Now, what do you think, where do you see the future of AI going?
I think that it's going to get better. I think that a lot of tools are going to improve. A lot of those things that it's close but not perfect. I still have to, half the time the result I get, it's not usable. I have to tweak around, or I have to struggle with it. It's only going to improve. The quality is going to keep getting better and better for all these different tools. I think a lot are going to merge. I think that the big shift is that face-to-face communication or live video is going to shoot through the roof, because it's the only way to know you're talking to a real person. There are so many. I think that certain markets are going to collapse. I think the Instagram market is going to completely change, because it's going to be flooded with AI women, which is already happening. I think that market's going to feel the biggest hurt, because it's you can generate images so much faster than you could ever do a photo shoot. No one can tell the difference. I guess no one cares. I don't use Instagram a lot, but I just was reading an article today. There's already influencers making tens of thousands of dollars a month, and they're not real people. There's even AI influencers that have agents. So more and more, that market, which has always been kind of not real, I think that's where the suffering is going to happen. But what you have right now is that someone has an AI write a script, and then AI generates the video. Then I send the video to my AI and say, hey, watch the video and give me the highlights. So instead of just talking to the person, right, we just run it through 6 AIs to create and then download the content. I think that that's going to lead actually to, okay, face-to-face communication is more valuable, because it's the only way to know it's a real person. because AI is getting more and more convincing. So now there's this question people start to have is like, well, did AI write this? Like people were just talking bad about this song in a new Disney movie. And the first thing is like, oh, I think ChatGPT wrote it. And that's not something people would have said a year ago, right? So now instead of saying, oh, they made an intern write it or a foreigner write, whatever, the person who wrote it doesn't speak English. Now it's become that. So more and more, there's this question of like, did you really write this or did an AI write this? And that's something we haven't sorted out as a culture. We're going to have to figure out. So I think the future is going to be that there's going to be an increased value for face-to-face communication. Mostly, there's this big fear people have that AI is going to it removes you from your business, removes your engagement. That's not really true. Like I'm still here in person. I'm still doing actually more content that I'm involved in because the other parts I can push down. I think that's where the shift is going to be. I do think that people who switch to AI writes all their articles, they're going to go out of business because yes, you can write AI articles right now that rank in the search engines, but I'm going to tell you right now, you don't have the same budget for creating AI articles that Google has for detecting AI articles. Mm-hmm. So they're already shifting their business model from search engine to AI algorithms. So it's kind of switching to an AIO, AI optimization model. That's what people are already trying to figure out. So the way we deliver and receive content is all going to change, but I think it's going to change for the better. There are going to be some jobs that disappear, but they're going to be replaced by similar jobs. The music industry went through this in the late 90s, early 2000s. And what happened? Well, people just go to concerts more now, right? Most musicians make their money from live performances, which is how it was in the 1800s, right? Before the invention of recording. So we're just going through a time of change that could be a really positive thing. And it can make life a lot better for a lot of people, but it really is the people who start now are going to have the biggest advantage. It's the biggest time where everyone has an even playing field because there's no one with more than a year of experience. All the really good AI stuff started in February. So even if you start now, you're not that far behind. You can catch up in a few weeks and you're going to be ahead of 99% of people because most people think it's a fad. And those are the ones who are going to lose their jobs or go out of business because they just didn't try. And that's their own fault. It's not like I didn't hear about it. There's no one who hasn't heard of AI. So it's really about big opportunity. Some jobs will shift around, but the value of personality is not going to go away because it's still that creativity. It's still the person driving the AI. There's still the human plus AI gives the best results.
Well, thank you so much for giving us all that knowledge and value. I am definitely going to take some of your tips today and implement them in my business. So thank you so much. Where can we find you? And also where can we find your book? Because I definitely want to go get your book.
Yeah, my book is called ChatGPT Profits. You can find it at servenomaster.com/AI. And if you just Google Serve No Master, every result is me and everything on the page, AI for artificial intelligence. That's all my AI stuff, all my information, all my cool free gifts. And you can find the book in loads of bookstores.
Awesome. I'll make sure I put that in the show notes. But thank you so much, Jonathan, for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, anytime. And we'll talk to you guys next time on the Virtual Antics podcast.